Hi friends and welcome. Today we are having a bookish catch-up. These are some of my favourite videos to do with you guys because I get to pull a few things that have been in my bookish atmosphere or on my radar for a while and just bring it into one video. So today I'm going to share with you a new YouTube series I've come across about books, which I really have been enjoying that conversation. I'm going to share with you a recent purchase that I got, and most excitedly I'm going to announce the book for my very first readathon this July. Firstly, I wanted to just talk a little bit about my last video, which was the mid-year freak-out book tag. And I really wanted to thank you guys for being so understanding and actually echoing my sentiment that perhaps 2025 is not turning out to be the best year for reading for some reason. Even though we're reading the books, we haven't been having the same 6-star reads that we had last year or the year before. I was very surprised to hear that a lot of you felt the same as me, and thank you so much for leaving your 5-star recommendations in the comments. One book that came up a few times was Nesting, which was a book that I came across in the long list for the Women's Prize, and I did share it a while ago that it was a book that was on my radar and I did want to perhaps pick up in the future. So I'm loving hearing that you guys had a 5-star read with that one, because I'm hoping that will be a great one for me too. You've really given me a boost of motivation in general to really just perhaps tackle some of those books that have been daunting or intimidating. Big books, subject matter I might have been avoiding. And so thank you for encouraging me to do that, because I just last weekend picked up one of those books and it got my heart racing in a way that I have not had with a book for quite a few months. So I'm so pleased I'm reading it. I will share it with you very soon in my month-end wrap-up for June. I mentioned that there was a new YouTube series that I had come across about books, and it's from Bustle, which I think is an American magazine, but they have a series called One Night Stand, and it's where they're just talking with celebrities generally who are trying to promote something, but they're talking about books that they love. And there's been some really engrossing conversations that have come out from that. The first one I watched, which was the algorithm just popped it up, and it's one of those times when it was an absolute hit for the algorithm, and that was the one with Sarah Jessica Parker, and it was almost 50 minutes of her just talking about books with this interviewer. And you may know that Sarah Jessica Parker is one of the judges for this year's Booker Prize. She has her own publishing label, I don't know what you'd call a publishing arm, but she has that under SJP Lit. And I came out of that video with quite a few recommendations that she loved and that were her favorite books of all time. So I'll leave a link to that below, but there was some other great conversations as well that I've caught up with, which was one with Bryce Dallas Howard, which was not just about her favorite books or the books that have meant something to her, but also she talked about her life with books and how her lifestyle is. And then the other one was Gillian Anderson, which was a really great interview. I really love her no fuss attitude. But there are so many other ones that are there already. Some of them are very short. They're only 14, 15 minutes long, and there are a couple that are very long. There was one done very recently with Celine Song, who was the director of Past Lives and most recently The Materialists. And there's some really interesting conversations, but fair warning, sometimes they do get into some spoilers, so if there is a book you have not read and you do not want spoilers, speed past that part. I also mentioned that I got a new book recently, which is not news in itself. So Mother's Day in Australia is in the first couple of weeks of May. I think it's the first Sunday. And my very clever dog Luna bought me a gift voucher for Amazon. And there was a book that I had been wanting to buy for a while, a coffee table book, but I hadn't because it was a little bit expensive just to justify just one book. So I had avoided it, but she got me this gift voucher. So I paid for the rest of it, and I got this beautiful coffee table book called The Queen's Diamonds by Hugh Roberts. And this is quite a big coffee table book, but it's just exactly what it says. It is the diamonds of the Queens of England from Queen Adelaide through to Queen Elizabeth II. And it's really a beautiful book. I knew I would enjoy it because of the photography, which is exquisite. The vibrance and the clarity of the photos are just so beautiful. They're very lifelike. Some of them have actually been photographed in real size. So when you see it on the page, it is life-size to how big it is in real life, which I thought was a great feature of this book. But it has not just the jewellery itself and maybe when it was worn, such as a coronation or an event, but it also talks about how pieces were changed over time. So a piece that maybe one queen had worn, say Queen Mary, and then if the Queen Mother wore it, she changed the setting so it was more suitable to that time in more of an Art Deco kind of look. So it was really quite fascinating to see how it changed over time. I would not call myself a monarchist, but I am quite fascinated with the royal family. And this has gone on for quite a while. I think it kind of started from the time I went to England and I saw the crown jewels at the Tower of London and heard all the mythology and legend around the tower itself. And I think that kind of kicked off a fascination with the royal family, with British history, and I particularly love the Tudor history. I recently was getting back into the War of the Roses. It's just a fascinating thing to me. And so this is a really great little collector's piece, and I'm very pleased that it was bought for me, technically. It is just beautiful to flip through. It is quite tangible. The jewelry photographs are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So I'm very, very pleased to have that in my collection. There was actually one particular piece which I had never heard of before, which was a wattle inspired brooch from Australia to Queen Elizabeth II. And I had never seen it before, but it was incredible. There's the color of the yellow diamonds against the white diamonds. It is beautiful. I think one of my favorite pieces was a tiara worn by the Queen Mother, and it was actually a tiara with flowers on it, and there were 5 flowers, and each of those 5 flowers could be disconnected to be worn as brooches, which is fascinating, the technical engineering that went into these pieces. But enough about that. Let's get to the book I have chosen for the readathon. Readathon? Do you remember doing readathons as a kid? I remember doing readathons where I would read see how many books I could read in one weekend. Oh man, that's a blast. We're doing a read along, not a readathon. And I have chosen my book for the July read along. When I was choosing a book, I had a few criterias. And the first was I wanted it to be an Australian author or an Australian story. Secondly, I didn't want to do a new release. I wanted something that maybe had a little bit of history in its own self, something that was at least 5 years old, possibly 10 years old. I also wanted to choose a book that was a 98% certainty it was going to be a 5-star read. So I am very pleased to announce that the book I've chosen for my very first read along this July is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. This is the literary debut for Kent, and it was published in 2013. I haven't read any Hannah Kent before, and I have wanted to for a while, so I am looking forward to this. This story is historical fiction. It is set in Iceland in 1829, and it is about the story of a woman in her last days as she has been tried for murder and she is about to be executed. I do believe it is based on a true story. It sounds fascinating. I think it's going to be very atmospheric. I have heard great things about Kent's writing, that it is very lyrical and quite rich in the way that she uses words. So I'm looking forward to that. It has great reviews against it. I hope it is going to be a 5-star read for all of us. So I would be delighted if you would join me for this read along. And whether it's your first time or if you're going to come back and do a reread, it's just a fun way to read a book and to talk about it with other people. So I have set up the read along on Storygraph, and this is my preferred reading log platform, so that's why I've chosen this one, but I have used it for buddy reads in the past. It is great that you can lock forums that only reveal themselves once a reader has gone past a certain percentage of pages or a certain percentage of the book. I like that, so you're avoiding any spoilers. You don't have to avoid everything. So there are a number of forums at different stages of the book, and I'll also go into a little bit more detail about it in my Substack that I'll send out this Friday. So if you're not a member of the Substack, please join. There is a link below. And while most of those forums will unlock at certain points through the reading journey, there is a forum that is open now for you to introduce yourself, talk about whether you've read this before, if you haven't read it before, if it's your first time reading Hannah Kent, first time reading from an Australian author. So you can jump in there now and talk about anything you like, your first thoughts before we start reading officially on the 1st of July, and we'll read it for the month of July. I hope this is a good choice. I felt a lot of pressure thinking what book to read, so I hope you enjoy this choice. I hope you join us for this read along, and I'm looking forward to chatting about it with you in the forums. I think it's going to be very gripping and there's going to be a lot of tension, and I think it's going to be a perfect book to have a discussion around. Thank you for joining me today as I just talk a little bit about everything, and I hope you'll join us for the read along. Have a wonderful weekend ahead. I will be back soon with my June wrap up, which is turning out to be quite eclectic as normal, but there are some very interesting books in here which I cannot wait to talk with you about. So have a wonderful day ahead of you, and I will speak with you soon. Bye.